Model Context Protocol is probably the most boring name for something that might well disrupt the foundation of software. And I don't think many people are paying attention to it, and I think there's some huge opportunities for those that are willing to get started on this early. So if you're watching this video instead of scrolling through another entertaining cat video, congratulations, you're probably in the top 0.001% people in terms of AI adoption. So my next question is, how are you going to leverage that and how are you going to take advantage of it? In this video, I'm going to take you through MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, a very boring name for what I think is a very exciting technology. We're going to talk about MCP servers, what they are, what they do, how you can leverage them, and I'm going to actually take you through setting up a couple of them within Claude Desktop and also within Cursor AI, a tool that I use on a daily basis to build software solely using my voice and not typing a word of code. So if you're into this kind of thing, check out switchdimension.com. I've got a course and community around building apps with AI and understanding the edge of what's possible as we move forward with all these new technologies. So MCP, short for Model Context Protocol, you can think of it as Anthropic described themselves as the USB-C connector for all these various different services, any different kind of company or website or service you can think of on the web, and connected to your own agent, whether that's Claude, OpenAI, it might be Cursor or Windsurf or even Siri in the future. Now, this is a really short list of examples. What I'm talking about here is every single application that you can possibly think of that exists today could potentially have an MCP server in front of it so that agents can start to interact with it and use it. That's pretty mind-blowingly huge. Now, I truly believe this is a gift from Anthropic because getting everybody on board to pioneer one way of approaching this problem is really key. We need everybody to get behind one way of doing this so it becomes a standard. Just think about the benefits of USB-C. We used to have multiple different types of cables, connectors, and chargers littered around the house in order to do one thing, charge or connect something with information. Now, through MCP protocols, we basically have this ability to take any agent we want and connect to any service, any website, any app out there that exists today. So I think this is really huge and it moves us to a new state in the internet. This is how we've been operating right now. We have a user that operates with a browser and then they operate with whatever service that is, whether it's Amazon or Instagram or whatever work tools that you use. Moving forward, we now have the ability to take the browser out of the equation, or at least limit its usage, and have us interact with our agents to go and carry out the different tasks and tools and things that we need to do today. So there are huge issues that we need to think about as we progress here. Security being number one. Giving your agent access to authorized view of all your different apps is something that we need to really solve as a problem. But as a product developer, I'm actually really excited about any kind of new powerful protocol that comes along, because there's so many businesses that you or I can create around this to facilitate the rest of the web coming on board to this whole new paradigm of operating. And I'll be honest, even if it's not MCP, even if this protocol isn't the one that succeeds, it is pioneering the way to move forward to a whole new way of interacting on the web, which will be very agentive and I really believe is the way forward. So there's three different concepts you need to understand. It's MCP host, the client, and the server. So I'm going to show you an example in a second, which will make this all very clear about how you set up a MCP client and an MCP server in Claude and Cursor. So essentially think of your host as the application that's allowing us to run our large language model, carry out different agentive processes. So we have our MCP host, and then the client is the specific client that's used within the host so that a connection or communication can happen between the host, which might be Claude or Cursor, and then the server, which might be Supabase or searching the internet or ordering from Amazon. So when we're setting these up, we're going to have the MCP client, which we're going to set up within the host, which will be Claude or Cursor. And then we have the MCP server, which is this kind of middleware server that stands in the middle between our client or our host and in our service over here. So you can think of this as kind of its own little server that acts as a middleman or a communication point between the service and the host. So there's different ways that we can run these MCP servers, but there's a lot of different ways these MCP servers can be run, and it differs based on what you're trying to do. But there's a really easy way that we can pull them down from the cloud, either using these two different tools. If you're using Python, it's UV, or if you're using Node, it's NPX. And what that does is it just running one simple command, it'll pull down that server onto your local machine so that it can be run, and then communications can start to happen between your host and whatever service is going on. And then over here, the service is usually something like a database. It might be Amazon.com or Instagram, Brave, GitHub, or even Figma if these are more development orientated, but you get the picture. And all of these have APIs or ways that we can communicate with them. And in this MCP server, it understands how the API works and what are the different things that might need to happen. And it is able to translate back to the AI exactly what you can pull from the API. So natural language requests come in here to say, hey, I need the latest Figma file, or I need to order a product from Amazon. So the MCP server is basically given a set of controlled functions that the client can use to pull then from the API. By the way, if you're into this kind of stuff, I highly recommend our community, which is Build with AI, where there's an entire course around using Cursor to develop apps. I'll be showing you how to integrate MCP apps, along with lots of different discussions from loads of different builders all over the world who are trying to stay on the edge of what's possible around building with AI. So I'll have more and more resources up there about MCP servers and the ones that the community likes to use the most. I've also set up a page, which I'm going to link in the description, which is going to give you more details on how to learn about MCP servers and a couple of different ones that I recommend as a starting point. So the first thing to read up on is the Introducing the Model Context Protocol article from Anthropic, which is literally only about 2 or 3 months old at this stage. They do a really good job of explaining the background to MCP. They also have a GitHub, which breaks down how to set up your own servers, how to get started across various different languages. And if you go to modelcontextprotocol.io, they have a quick start and more example servers and clients. I think there's going to be a huge industry in building servers for existing companies. If you think about when the internet came around, everybody needed a website. I think the next extension from this is everybody's going to need a system that AI agents can talk to. And I believe that's going to be MCP, or at least much stronger APIs. So could you start a company that does this for companies in your region or in your vertical? Or is this a service you could provide? Or is there a product you could potentially build around this? The next site I recommend taking a look at is Glama, specifically the MCP section. And you can actually search by weekly downloads or GitHub stars. So if you search by downloads, you can start to see, what are the more popular ones that are being used. And it's going to give you an idea of their security levels, what license they have, and the quality. The problem is with a lot of MCP servers now, a lot of them are broken, they don't work, and you have to be so careful about the security aspects of what you're downloading. You're pulling something onto your local machine and letting it run in association with using your agent. If you don't understand the code or you don't feel like it's trusted, be very careful about what you're running. It can affect your file system, and it can affect and get access to any of your applications. This is a huge security concern. It's something you need to be aware of and you need to start planning around. But I believe there's also opportunities in making sure that we have secure servers set up and how we approach and address that. So what I recommend is going to the weekly downloads or the GitHub stars and taking a look at ones which the community think are really good and having a play with those. Of course, inspecting the code just to see how they work. You can see some of the really popular ones are around using Puppeteer so that you can perform web browsing tasks and take screenshots. That's particularly useful actually if you're developing software, because you can have the model understand what it's developing, see the console, take screenshots of what it's working on, and iterate from there. And then also we have Postgres SQL MCP servers. So that means that we can actually see inside our databases as we develop them and understand and have the model understand exactly what it's working on and how it can iterate and move forward. And then we also have Smithery.ai, where it features top MCP servers. Start to see the potential of what's possible here, like RAG search, YouTube integrations. If you take a look here, you can see how often these tools are being invoked and used, giving you an idea of their popularity. There's even ones here that you can integrate with Notion or Apple tools. So let's take an example server. So since this whole channel is about developing with AI, we're going to use an MCP, which will allow our agents to be able to see exactly what's in our database at any given time, so it can help make decisions about what to build next. So if you go to Model Context Protocol and servers, there's a lot of ones that are listed here. So I'm just going to find the Postgres one here. I'm going to click on that, and then you're going to get a README and some instructions. So this is read only at the moment. There's multiple different versions of this. Supabase have a version. Some can actually write to your database, make changes. We're just going to go with the read only version for now, just for safety, until you understand a bit more about how these all work. So we can set it up in Claude Desktop, or we can set it up directly in Cursor, and the instructions can be transferred from either or. Now I'm going to show you how to do it in Claude first, because it's fairly straightforward and simple. Okay, so to set it up with Claude Desktop, there's a really good quick start here in Model Context Protocol. In order to be able to add an MCP server so that Claude Desktop can use it, we need to find or create this file here. Here it is in Mac OS, and here it is in Windows. So if I was to open up my file browser in Windows and paste that into the bar, it'll take me directly to that location. If you don't have a Claude Desktop config, you just need to create that file and name it .json. So if I just go to my directory and I paste it in the top here, paste in that command and hit return, what it's done in another window is it's opened up my Claude Desktop config.json in Notepad, and I'm going to show you that in Cursor. If I could go file, open, and then if I just put in here return, paste that in and click OK, it will open up the folder. Or if you don't have that file created yet, I would just delete that, open up the directory that it's in, and go and create this file, Claude Desktop.json. Okay, I've gone back over to our Postgres DB, and essentially we have usage with Claude Desktop instructions, and then we have Docker and npx. There's two different options for setting them up. There's either UV, which is a Python-based package manager, or npx, which is a Node-based package manager. I operate mostly in Node, so I'm going to use the npx version. So I'm just going to copy this, and then if we go back over to our editor here, we can paste in that command, and I've done that already here, and I've just put in my specific details from Supabase, in this case for my Postgres. So it'll work on a local DB, or it can work on a remote DB. So let's just delete that part for now, and I'm just going to show you where I would get that information in Supabase. So in Supabase, you can click on whatever database you've got set up, and then if I click connect here, I get my connection strings, and then I'm going to copy this direct connection, or you can also try, if that doesn't work, the session pooler, but it's important that it ends in 5432 as the port number for the Postgres database. So I'm just going to copy that, and you need to put in your password as part of that. Let's go back over again to Cursor. So you'll see here I've got Postgres. This is a dummy connection string and a dummy password. I've just left them here so you can see exactly what it might look like. You'll see in this case, I'm connecting via the pooler, which is the second connection setup. And you basically just save this file, making sure it's in the right location, which I showed you a second ago. So the next thing we want to be able to do is start up Claude Desktop. So I've got it running already, and you'll see there's this little MCP tools available icon over here. Now, I have 6 of them set up, but I've deleted them all out so that I can show you how this sets up. So when I refresh, it should just show me that there's one tool there. So when you click X here in Claude, it's not shutting down all the service, it's not shutting down all the processes, it's just shutting down this window. So what you need to do to make sure all this works is go to Control Alt Delete, go to your task manager, and then you want to end all these processes. So just go and click End Task, and that will kill all the processes that are running. You can do the same thing on your Mac as well, whatever you use to end the processes. I think it's the Network Manager or something like that. So if you're on a Windows, sometimes it can be useful to run as administrator. So I would open Claude here first and then go down here and run as administrator. I'm not sure if it has a big effect, but I did a lot of troubleshooting to get these running initially. So this is the process that I'm just stepping through. So run as administrator, and then we're going to allow that to say yes. Now, when it loads up first, you're not going to see anything show up here because these servers kind of need to wake up and begin to be added. So what you need to do is also make sure you're in development mode. So I'll go up here to File and then Settings. So you'll often see it'll say go to Settings, and people get mixed up and they go to Settings here. This is the wrong settings to go to. You need to go up here to Settings. So File, Settings, and then to Developer. You can see all the different services that are running. So I have Figma, Supabase, and MCP installer, and I also have Postgres running. You'll probably just see one of them show up there. You're having any issues, it will actually show up here to show you what those are, and then you can hit edit config here. It will actually take you to the location of the Claude desktop config.json file as well. You can go and check the logs as well for the MCP connections. So you'll see here there's the general log, and then there's specific logs for each one. So if you click into those, you'll see if there's any connection errors or different things like that. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when you're running these, what they're using is, as we saw in this file back here, they're using npx. So that's the node package manager. You might be using UV if you're using Python, but if you're using npx, you need to have node and npm set up on your Windows machine. Make sure it's running on the local Windows machine, so you've got it set up there. If you're running WSL, it's not going to work if your node is located totally inside in the Linux subsystem. It has to be run on the actual operating system itself, which is either Windows or Mac, in order for it to work or to be run. Now, once it's loaded up, you see that we have 5 MCP tools available, and I can see each one of them there. I've got Figma, and then I've got our Postgres available here as well. Can you tell me what social media platforms are listed in my database? It's going to ask for permission to access the MCP. And again, you're getting a warning here to be careful. And I can't stress this enough. You're probably going to have a lot of fun with MCP servers and download lots of them, but just be wary that these are on your local file system having access and are being run by agents. You need to be very careful about what you're choosing to run and what you're using. Know what is happening. And here we go. It's gone and taken a look at all the different tables to understand what's there. And then it's gone and selected from the tables the social media platforms and pulled them all the way through here and given me the output. So this is really powerful because now we can basically have conversations with our database using agent. Now I know you can do that through the agents in Supabase and different things like this, but this is just the beginning of being able to access all our data in this way. So how this is really useful is then if we take what we have here and if we go to Cursor. So within Cursor, we're developing applications, we're building out products and apps. You can check out my course on Switch Dimension where I take you through building an entire web app only using your voice. If you go to Cursor settings and then go to our MCP here, there's various different tools that you can add and enable and disable. Some of the ones I'm favoring at the moment are browser tools and Figma MCP. So let's add in our new tool, server dash. So there's two different options for running. One is command and one is SSE. So we're going to use command in this case. So if we go back to our instructions here, it doesn't necessarily show us instructions for how to set this up with Cursor. A lot of different platforms will. They'll have specific Cursor instructions, but in this case, we can just interpret them. So we have the command npx, back to Cursor, we put in npx, and then we need -y, and we need this model context protocol. This is the address of where we're going to pull it from. So we're going to go -y and then space and the next argument, which is where we want it to come from. Let's go back again. And then we want to take in the location of our database. So let's go back here again, and we just a little space here, paste that in. And you could have your localhost database here, but we're going to connect to our Supabase like we did with Claude. And so I'm going to pull that address, and then we're just going to add this. Now you'll see here it's given me this error client closed. This might work perfectly fine if you're running Mac or Linux, but in my case, running Windows and I'm in WSL, the way I've gotten it to work is by using the command/C prefix in order to run it as a command. So if I save that now, it'll pop open a shell, and you'll see that I've got a green dot beside server and Postgres, and it says it's enabled. Cool. So now if we go over to our little chat pane here, and if I click new, and I'm using the agent, I can say, can you tell me what social media platforms I have in my database? And so you'll see there it's calling the MCP tool, and it's calling the specific tool, which is query. And then it's showing us the parameters. And then it says, I see the correct table name, and it's pulled in the platforms. So again, this is really powerful as we build out applications, because now Cursor can actually understand what's in the database. And so if we're trying to troubleshoot errors or understand different things that can go wrong, instead of us trying to copy and paste from Cursor what's in there to help the model understand, it can go and look directly itself. Now you could also extend this server to actually write and update your database, but that's a little bit iffy for now. We want to just be careful with the powers that we're giving these tools. Here's another really useful one if you're designing anything in Figma, if you're wireframing or designing anything in Figma, and you want to be able to pull that directly into Cursor and create whole designs. You should check out the Figma context MCP. It's from this userGlips, and he's put up a nice video describing how it all works, how you can basically pull any different part of a Figma design and pull it into Figma and have it created. So essentially for this to work, you need to run your own little server. So we'll just pull this command here like that, and then we're going to open a terminal instance. So one here, and then I'm just going to paste in that command, and then what I need to put in here is my API key from Figma. If you go to the figma.com developers API, you can find out about where to get your access tokens, and then you've got a personal access token. So you can generate or generate a new one here, then give it a token name, an expiry, etc., and you can generate that token. You're going to take that token, and then you're going to go back to your terminal here, and we're going to paste in that token here and run the command. So then you should see it's running its own little server here. It's got the Figma AI, it's on port 33333. So that means we've got a server running now. You need to keep that window open in order for this to work. So if we go back over to Cursor again, and then we've got our Figma MCP. I'm going to switch this from disabled to enabled. and it creates its own little connection. And I can minimize this. And then you'll see actually how I've got that set up. I've just called it Figma MCP. Now this is an SSE type connection, and then I've got localhost 3333 SE, and I'm going to save that. So that should be running fine. So we'll see that we've got Figma MCP working. You can see here I've got this free Figma template from the marketplace. Here it is if you want to go find it. And let's say I'm working on this particular file. I want to take this design now and pull it into Cursor. I can just highlight the actual selection and the section. I right click, and then I can go to copy and paste as, and then copy link to the selection. Then if I go back into Cursor again, and I've already set up Next.js here, I'm going to select page. And if I run my npm server, you'll see what's there. So right now I just have hello world in there, but maybe I want to add in that particular element. So let's just start a new chat window here. And I'm going to attach the page, which is here, to the context. And then I'm going to say, I'm just going to paste in the link and say, let's add this to the page. And so it should reference Figma and be able to pull this element in. Now I don't have a container or anything else like that, but I'll just giving you an example of how it might work. So it's indicating that it's calling the Figma tool, and it's going to pull everything in. It's saying get Figma data. It sees what's there. It says I see feature section with feature cards. Let me help you implement this in Next.js. So went and set up a components folder here and created a features div. I created a features component and then updated the page. I'm just going to accept all those changes. And then if we pop over here, you'll see that it's pulled in the design and it's recreated it here. Now, what it hasn't done is pulled in the SVGs exactly. And if we look at the console logs here, it's saying that it's attempting to actually do that, but it has an error. So not sure what's happening there, but I can see how in the near future we'll have the ability to pull down the actual SVGs, the images, and then actually have them created in the public directory so that they're ready to be used. So I thought that's particularly useful, and keep an eye on that repository to see how it progresses. And if you are the owner of that repository, great work. So if you're into this kind of thing, and I think if you've made it this far in the video, you probably are, don't forget to check out the Switch Dimension community for lots more resources and an entire course on how to build apps with AI. See you in the next one.